Introduction. Friends, if you want to watch the classic comedy blockbuster Police Academy from 1984 in English, then you've come to the right place. And if this is your very first time visiting our channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because today's video is going to be packed with laughs, nostalgia, and some really fun behind-the-scenes surprises. In this video, we're going to take a full deep dive into Police Academy, the film that redefined slapstick comedy in the 80s and turned a group of misfit recruits into household names. Whether you've seen the movie before or you're discovering it for the first time, we promise this ride is worth it. We're going to start by talking about what exactly Police Academy is all about. What makes it such a cult favorite even after all these years? We'll look at the movie's outrageous storyline, how it brought together a team of eccentric and totally unqualified recruits into the most unpredictable police training program ever put on screen, and why audiences couldn't get enough of them. We'll walk you through all the characters, who played which role, and how the actors' hilarious performances gave the film its signature charm. From the straight-faced instructors to the sound effects wizard, every character had their own flavor, and we're breaking it all down. But that's not all. This video isn't just about what's in front of the camera. We're going behind the scenes too. We'll talk about how the film was made, where it was shot, and what happened during pre-production, including how the idea for this chaotic comedy even came about. You'll get to hear about the filming process, the unexpected improvisations on set, and how the post-production team helped bring the madness to life. We'll also take a look at the technical side of things, cinematography, editing, and of course, the music. That unforgettable theme? We'll tell you where it came from and why it's still iconic. And of course, we're not skipping over the financial side of things. We'll go into the film's budget, how much it cost to make, and how it ended up being a massive surprise hit at the box office. We'll talk about how this low-budget comedy not only made back its money but exploded into a full-blown franchise, spawning sequels, cartoons, and even a proposed reboot. All because a bunch of characters broke every rule, and audiences loved them for it. We'll also cover where you can actually watch Police Academy today. Is it streaming? Can you rent it digitally? Is it on satellite TV? We'll answer all those questions so you can grab your popcorn and enjoy it the best way possible. Whether you're watching it on your smart TV, your laptop, or even on your phone, we'll help you figure out the best way to experience the full impact of this comedy classic. And finally, to top it all off, I'll give you a mini review of the film and share some really cool facts you might not know, like which cast members were almost replaced, which scenes were improvised, and how the public and critics reacted when it first hit theaters. We'll talk about the film's legacy, its influence on pop culture, and why it's still one of the most quoted comedies of all time. So my friends, I strongly recommend you watch this video till the very end because there's a lot to unpack and a lot to enjoy. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just curious about this comedy phenomenon, you're going to walk away knowing more than ever before. So let's not waste another second. Let's get started with everything you need to know about Police Academy, the 1984 movie that made complete disorder into complete entertainment. The story of Police Academy kicks off with chaos, confusion, and one bold decision that changes everything. The city's mayor, under pressure to diversify and expand the police force, makes a sweeping declaration: no more restrictions on who can join the Police Academy. That's right. Height, weight, education, physical fitness, even basic sense, all those pesky barriers, gone. Suddenly, the Academy's doors are wide open to anyone who signs up, and that means the weirdest, wildest group of recruits you've ever seen is about to show up for training. Enter Carrie Mahoney, our smart-mouthed, street-savvy troublemaker who's been given a choice: join the Academy or go to jail. Naturally, he picks the option with more potential for mayhem. He has no intention of becoming a cop, of course. He plans to get kicked out as fast as possible. But that plan runs into a problem named Commandant Lassard, a sweet, oblivious, well-meaning head of the Academy, and the real threat, Lieutenant Harris, a strict, power-hungry disciplinarian with a personal mission to kick the oddballs out and restore order. What follows is a classic fish-out-of-water comedy, where every character feels like they wandered in from a different movie. You've got Moses Hightower, a florist built like a tank with a gentle soul. You've got Larval Jones, the human sound effects machine who turns everyday noises into a one-man action movie. Then there's Tackleberry, the gun-obsessed recruit who treats every moment like a war zone, and Hooks, the soft-spoken trainee with a surprisingly fierce side. And don't forget the party duo George Martin and Barbara, the quiet guy who slowly comes out of his shell. Each of them has their quirks, and the film has a blast throwing them into increasingly ridiculous situations. The plot unfolds in a series of comic episodes that build on one another, escalating the tension between the recruits and Lieutenant Harris. Mahoney's schemes to get himself expelled keep backfiring in the most hilarious ways. Meanwhile, the other trainees start growing into their roles, not because of traditional police training, but because of their own unique, absurd talents. The story doesn't rely on a complex timeline or non-linear structure. It sticks to a conventional, straightforward progression, but what makes it feel unpredictable is the sheer randomness of the characters' behavior. The emotional and comedic turning point comes when a full-blown riot breaks out downtown, and the very recruits everyone underestimated are sent in to assist. This is the moment where the narrative flips. The misfits, once treated as jokes, now have to rise to the occasion. Harris, in typical fashion, ends up in over his head and, of course, it's Mahoney and the gang who come to the rescue. Suddenly, the story isn't just about goofing off anymore, it's about proving something, both to themselves and the city. The final act hits that perfect mix of absurd comedy and feel-good resolution. Mahoney saves the day, Hightower flips a car like it's a paperweight, Jones weaponizes his sound effects, and Hooks finally finds her voice. It's a chaotic, cartoonish climax, but it works because by this point, you've fallen in love with this group of outsiders. They're not polished. They're not traditional heroes. But they're loyal, unpredictable, and, somehow, they get the job done. Police Academy doesn't reinvent storytelling structure, but it takes the classic underdog arc and cranks the volume way up. It leans hard into character-driven comedy, using exaggerated personalities to fuel each plot beat. The emotional impact sneaks up on you, hidden under all the laughter and absurdity. And in the end, what began as a punishment for Mahoney turns into something a little more meaningful, not that he'd ever admit it. In Police Academy, character development doesn't unfold in the traditional dramatic sense, it crashes through like a joyride in a runaway police cruiser. These characters start as caricatures, bold and exaggerated, but as the story rolls on, they start to surprise you. What makes their arcs so fun isn't that they transform into perfect cops by the end, but that they grow into exactly the kind of unpredictable heroes the movie needs. Let's start with Mahoney. He's the unofficial ringleader, the smooth-talking rebel who treats the academy like summer camp with uniforms. At first, he's only there to avoid jail time and does everything he can to get kicked out. But here's the twist. Underneath all the sarcasm and rule-breaking, Mahoney actually cares. He's watching the people around him change, and slowly, without ever saying it out loud, he starts taking responsibility. He still clowns around, but when the city needs help, he doesn't bail. He steps up, not because someone told him to, but because he chooses to. That's real growth wrapped in a joke every 2 minutes. Hightower might look like a walking wall, but he has one of the most genuine character arcs in the film. He starts off shy, quiet, even awkward in some ways. He doesn't fit the cop mold at all. He's a florist, for starters. But he's got this quiet dignity, and when he finally breaks out of his shell, literally flipping over a car, it's one of the most satisfying moments in the movie. You see the strength he's been holding back, and how he's found confidence in a place that didn't initially welcome him. Hooks is another standout. She starts off barely audible, a mouse in uniform, constantly apologizing for taking up space. But her journey is one of finding her voice. Literally. By the end of the film, she roars into action with a line that's become iconic. It's not just about volume, it's about power. She's not just a punchline, she becomes a force in her own right, and that transformation is quietly one of the most rewarding in the entire film. Then there's Tackleberry, the gun-toting, war-ready wild card who seems like he belongs in an action film rather than a comedy. At first, he's just the guy who'd probably try to arrest a squirrel for loitering. But the film adds layers to him, not just through his over-the-top dedication to law and order, but in his awkward, almost adorable attempts at romance. He's absurd, yes, but he's also sincere. There's more to him than just the arsenal strapped to his chest. Jones, the human sound effects machine, doesn't go through a deep emotional transformation, but he's a different kind of growth story. His character is a testament to embracing your quirks and using your weirdest skills to make an impact. In a world of rules and procedures, he breaks all of them using nothing but creativity and vocal cords. He's the comic glue of the group, and while his arc isn't about change, it's about showing that sometimes being yourself is more powerful than conforming. The relationships between the characters are what really drive the development. Mahoney and Hightower develop a mutual respect. Mahoney mentors Barbara, the most timid of the bunch, helping him find a little courage. There's a sense of camaraderie that grows with each ridiculous drill, each prank, each botched training session. What starts as a random collection of oddballs becomes a dysfunctional but loyal team. They fight, they joke, they pull pranks on Harris, but when it matters, they've got each other's backs. Even the antagonists add dimension. Lieutenant Harris isn't just a one-note villain. He represents the old guard, obsessed with image, order, and control. His constant attempts to sabotage the recruits reflect his fear of change. Watching him fail over and over as the misfits succeed is one of the movie's most satisfying payoffs. So while no one in Police Academy is giving a Shakespearean performance or unraveling a complex emotional monologue, their growth is woven into the chaos. It's subtle, it's silly, but it's there. They start as punchlines and end as characters you genuinely root for. It's transformation by laughter, teamwork by accident, and self-discovery via prank war. And that's exactly what makes it so fun to watch. The performances in Police Academy are like an explosive comedy buffet where every actor brings their own flavor of madness to the table, and somehow, it all works. It's not a film that asks its cast to cry on cue or wrestle with deep emotional trauma. Instead, it demands that they go all in on the absurdity, embrace the chaos, and make every ridiculous situation feel like the most important thing in the world. And that's exactly what they do. Steve Guttenberg as Carrie Mahoney is the ultimate charming slacker. He plays Mahoney with just the right amount of mischief and likability. He's the guy who's always on the edge of getting expelled, but you still want to hang out with him. Guttenberg doesn't try to play it serious even for a second, and that's his strength. He knows he's the prankster in the middle of a clown parade, and he never lets the energy drop. His smirks, his comebacks, his effortless chemistry with everyone, from commanding officers to fellow recruits, make him the perfect center for all the madness to orbit around. Then there's Michael Winslow as Larval Jones, who doesn't so much act as he performs an entire audio show every time he opens his mouth. Winslow's mastery of sound effects turns him into a one-man symphony of sirens, gunfire, and electronic chaos. It's a role that's impossible to duplicate because it's so specifically tailored to his real-life talent. He steals scenes without needing punchlines. A police radio or a megaphone in his hands is comedy gold. And the best part? The other actors clearly have no idea what sound is coming next, which makes their reactions even better. Bubba Smith as Hightower brings this gentle giant vibe that makes you instantly root for him. He barely speaks at first, but when he does, there's this calm strength behind his delivery that contrasts beautifully with the surrounding absurdity. And when he flips that car, it's not just a physical stunt, it's a performance move. He plays Hightower as a man of few words, but when he acts, he dominates the screen. It's the kind of low-key, underplayed performance that balances out the louder personalities around him. Marion Ramsey as Hooks is a masterclass in quiet comedy. Her squeaky voice delivery starts out as a running gag, but Ramsey gives Hooks a sweetness and vulnerability that slowly builds up to her big moment. When she finally yells that iconic line during the riot, the audience isn't just laughing, they're cheering. It's a classic underdog payoff, and Ramsey's control over her voice and timing is what makes it land so well. David Graff as Tackleberry turns a gun-obsessed lunatic into a lovable oddball, which is no easy feat. He could have easily been a one-joke character, but Graff adds the sincere, wide-eyed dedication to everything Tackleberry does. He delivers every line with the conviction of a Shakespearean soldier, even if he's talking about a bazooka. He's intense, but never threatening. Somehow, he makes full-blown militarism funny, and that's saying something. George Gaines as Commandant Lassard floats through the film in a state of comic bliss. He's the clueless boss who never realizes just how wild things are getting around him, and Gaines plays him with this spaced-out dignity that's downright hilarious. His timing, especially during the podium scene, yes, that one, is flawless. He doesn't force the comedy, he lets it happen around him, and that contrast makes it even funnier. And of course, G.W. Bailey as Lieutenant Harris is the perfect comic antagonist. He plays Harris like he's in a completely different movie. He's deadly serious about maintaining order, which makes him the ideal target for all the mayhem. Bailey never breaks character, which is exactly why his reactions to all the absurdity around him are so effective. His physical comedy is top tier, from getting stuck in a horse's rear end to being humiliated by recruits who always stay one step ahead. The supporting cast rounds out the experience with their own memorable quirks. From the timid Barbara who slowly finds his courage, to George Martin's Casanova antics, each performer is fully committed to their brand of ridiculous. No one phones it in. Every actor seems to understand that this isn't about realism. It's about leaning hard into your character's most extreme traits and playing them like they're the most natural thing in the world. What makes the performances work so well is that everyone is in sync tonally. They all exist in this cartoonish universe where logic bends and personality explodes. There's a rare chemistry among the cast that makes the comedy feel effortless. You believe these people could never have become police officers in real life, but in this world, they're the heroes we didn't know we needed. And it's the actors who make that ridiculous idea feel just right. The direction of Police Academy, led by Hugh Wilson, is like a perfectly organized riot, loud, unpredictable, and completely intentional underneath the madness. Wilson doesn't just steer a comedy. He choreographs an ensemble circus of absurd personalities, turning what could have been a slapstick mess into a tightly paced comedy machine. What makes his direction stand out isn't flashy camera tricks or deep emotional monologues. It's how he uses tone, timing, and controlled chaos to bring out the best in every scene. From the very beginning, Wilson sets the mood with a wink. The moment we're introduced to the new police policy that opens the academy to everyone regardless of qualifications, the tone is established. This world doesn't play by the rules. The film exists in a space where logic bends just enough to let hilarity in, but never so far that it becomes surreal. Wilson walks that fine line masterfully. He understands that the comedy has to come from the characters believing in the world around them, even if that world is completely unhinged. The pacing is one of the strongest tools Wilson wields. The film moves quickly, bouncing from training mishaps to ridiculous drills to prank wars without ever dragging. Every scene feeds the next, not just in plot but in energy. There's no wasted space. Even scenes that seem purely comedic, like Mahoney's many schemes or Joan's sound effect detours, are given just enough room to breathe without overstaying their welcome. That tight rhythm is what keeps the movie feeling fresh and fast, even when the jokes are flying at rapid-fire pace. Stylistically, Wilson isn't trying to impress with sweeping cinematography or elaborate set pieces. His real visual strength is knowing where to put the camera so the jokes land hard and clean. He frames chaos with precision. Physical comedy, especially, is shot wide and steady so that nothing gets lost in the action. When Harris gets humiliated, when Hightower flips a car, when Tackleberry goes full commando in training, all of it is captured in ways that highlight the gag without overcomplicating it. Wilson knows exactly how to let a joke play out naturally without slicing it up with fancy edits or distracting angles. But it's not just about the gags. Wilson's direction gives space for the characters to develop their quirks in an organic way. He doesn't rush them into stereotypes. Instead, he lets the cast explore their own comedic rhythms. You can feel that he trusted his actors, giving them freedom to improvise while keeping the story anchored. That's especially clear with performers like Michael Winslow and Steve Guttenberg, whose improvisational talents shine through without ever derailing the story. Wilson's vision was never to control every moment, it was to guide the chaos just enough so it never crashed. One of the most effective tricks Wilson uses is tone management. He never lets the film take itself too seriously, but he also never turns it into a parody of itself. There's a strange sincerity buried under the hijinks. When the riot breaks out in the third act, and the recruits are suddenly thrown into real danger, the film shifts gears just slightly. Wilson doesn't make it dark or dramatic, but he adds just enough tension to make the hero's actions matter. It's still a comedy, but the stakes feel real enough that the payoffs, like Hook's finding her voice or Mahoney saving Harris, actually feel earned. Even the soundtrack placement and use of silence are directed with care. The musical cues always enhance the humor rather than forcing it. The famous Police Academy theme is light, upbeat, and matches the film's bouncy spirit. Wilson makes sure the score dances with the comedy rather than stepping on its toes. And perhaps most importantly, Wilson understands ensemble direction. He juggles a large cast of characters with wildly different styles and keeps them all in play. No one feels forgotten. Everyone gets a moment. He never lets one performance overpower the others, but instead creates a rhythm where every character, from leads to the smallest supporting roles, contributes to the movie's tone. That balance gives Police Academy its heartbeat. Wilson's direction turns what could have been a forgettable comedy into a pop culture landmark. He doesn't shout for attention. He orchestrates laughter like a conductor with a baton made of rubber chickens. Every pratfall, every smirk, every absurd explosion of personality fits neatly into the frame he builds. And that makes all the difference. The cinematography in Police Academy doesn't try to be artistic in the traditional sense. It's not aiming for sweeping vistas or poetic lighting, but what it does aim for, it nails: clarity, comedic rhythm, and perfectly timed chaos. Cinematographer Michael D. Margulies approaches the camera like a comedy partner. His job isn't to impress with visual flourishes, it's to catch the joke, frame the gag, and keep the energy moving. And he does it with more precision than most people realize. The camera angles are straightforward, and that's a good thing. Comedy relies on timing and reactions, and Margulies uses clean, wide shots to give the audience the full picture. When Mahoney's pranking Harris, when Tackleberry's going full Rambo at the shooting range, or when Jones is making explosion sounds that sound more real than the actual training simulation, the camera stays still and lets the chaos unfold. You're never confused about where to look. The action is always front and center, the reaction shots are sharp, and nothing feels overcut. The cinematography treats each gag like a setup and punchline. It gives you the full view, and then zooms in just enough to catch the payoff. Lighting throughout the film leans bright and balanced. This isn't a movie with shadows of mystery or dramatic spotlights. It's high-key, broad daylight comedy, and the lighting reflects that tone. Even night scenes, like the ones during the riot in the city, avoid darkness or moodiness. Instead, they're lit in a way that keeps expressions readable and action easy to follow. You're not squinting to catch the humor. Everything is lit to feel accessible and playful. The visual brightness helps reinforce the cartoon-like atmosphere of the entire Academy environment. Framing plays a sneaky, important role. Characters are often positioned in groups, highlighting the ensemble nature of the film. The recruits aren't just individuals, they're a collective storm of madness, and Margulies uses wide shots to show that shared energy. The symmetry in training montages, the way Harris is always dead center when he's barking orders, the way Mahoney always seems to lean just off to the side like he's half in and half out of the situation, it's all intentional. The frames help tell you who's in control and who's messing with the controls. Visually striking moments do pop up, not in an artistic sense, but in how memorable they become because of the framing. Take the horse in the office scene. It's staged like a slow reveal, with a perfect cut that allows the audience to discover the punchline just a half second before the characters do. The camera doesn't have to swing dramatically or zoom, just a steady, patient composition and perfect comedic timing. Or the moment Hightower flips the car. The way it's framed, with him emerging calmly, centered, like a superhero from a floral shop, is both funny and iconic. It's all framed to say, yes, this just happened. No, we're not going to explain it. During the riot in the third act, things do shift slightly. The camera movements become a bit more dynamic. We get more movement, quicker edits, more chaotic angles, but still, everything remains clear. This part could have easily gone messy visually, but it stays crisp. The framing ensures we're still following the comedy, even as the scale of the scene increases. That balance of action and humor comes through in how the camera reacts. It never panics, even when the city is literally burning. Close-ups are used sparingly but effectively. Harris's wide-eyed rage, Mahoney's smug smirks, Hook's barely whispered threats before she snaps. These moments hit harder because the cinematography knows when to move in and when to hold back. It's like a rhythm. Wide shot, build the tension. Reaction shot, hold the punchline. Close up, deliver the kill. The atmosphere created by the cinematography is controlled anarchy. Everything looks just polished enough to be a real movie, but loose enough to make you feel like anything could happen. That's exactly what Police Academy needs. It's not just the jokes that make it funny, it's how the camera invites you into the madness, lets you hang back just far enough to enjoy the whole picture, and then drops you right into the middle of the lunacy when the timing's right. It's visual comedy through and through, and the cinematography gets the tone just right. The editing and pacing of Police Academy are like a well-oiled whoopee cushion, timed perfectly, a little unpredictable, and designed to make you laugh at just the right moment. The film's flow isn't just smooth, it's energetic, bouncing from one chaotic scenario to the next without ever feeling like it's stalling for time. The editors, Jack Hofstra and David Blewett, know exactly how to stitch together comedy with momentum, and they keep the rhythm snappy from start to finish. The film wastes no time getting to the fun. Within the first few minutes, we're already introduced to the central conflict: a city overwhelmed by crime, a desperate mayor's new recruitment policy, and the floodgates opening for every oddball in town. It's a brisk setup, but not rushed. The editing keeps things moving without glossing over character introductions. Every recruit gets their own little slice of screen time as they arrive, and the quick-cut montages let you meet the cast without bogging down the story. Each scene has a purpose, and none of them overstay their welcome. Training sequences are where the pacing really shines. They come in bursts, short, punchy scenes packed with jokes, mishaps, and slapstick. But they're placed in a rhythm that lets the audience breathe. You'll get a loud, ridiculous gag like Hightower crashing a police car, followed by a quieter, character-driven moment like Hook's shyly whispering her lines. This ebb and flow keeps the film from feeling like one long, exhausting sketch. It's chaos with structure. The editors know when to hit the gas, when to let you laugh, and when to glide into the next moment. Transitions between scenes are seamless. There's no jarring jumps, no awkward cutaways, no unnecessary filler. The story moves like a series of well-timed punches, always landing just as the last laugh fades. And the film doesn't rely on flashy edits or rapid-fire cutting to create excitement. Instead, it trusts the performers and the situations. The camera lingers just long enough to catch the full punchline, then moves on before the joke gets stale. One of the smartest choices in the editing is how it handles group scenes. With such a large ensemble cast, things could have easily felt cluttered or confusing. But the edits give everyone space. In scenes where multiple characters are reacting at once, like training drills or the final riot, you get fast, precise cuts that highlight individual expressions, reactions, and mishaps without losing sight of the bigger picture. The editors juggle a dozen comedic threads at once, and somehow they never get tangled. The pacing never drags, and that's rare for a comedy that runs over 90 minutes. There's always something new happening: a prank, a drill, a confrontation, a disaster. Even when the film takes a moment to slow down and explore relationships, like Mahoney mentoring Barbara or Hooks trying to speak up, it never loses momentum. These moments feel like well-placed beats in the rhythm, giving the audience a second to reset before diving back into the madness. As the film builds toward the final act, the pacing picks up just enough to create a sense of real stakes. The riot sequence is edited more rapidly, with shorter cuts and more dynamic angles, but it still keeps the comedy front and center. The editors don't try to make it feel like an action movie. They keep the tone light, the rhythm fast, and the characters fully in control of the chaos. And even here, with the city falling apart, the pacing allows for jokes, reveals, and callbacks without slowing the momentum. Emotionally, the film doesn't try to squeeze in heavy drama, but the editing still gives space for payoff moments. When Hooks finally shouts, or when Hightower returns triumphantly, or when Mahoney saves the day, the pacing adjusts just enough to let those beats land. They're not overly dramatic, but the rhythm gives them weight. You feel the shift, even if it's still wrapped in a punchline. Police Academy is a film where editing is the silent hero. It keeps the laughs rolling, the story clicking, and the characters popping without ever drawing attention to itself. It's invisible in the best way, like a well-timed joke you didn't see coming until you're already laughing. Every cut matters, every scene leads somewhere, and the pacing keeps you locked in from the first goofy salute to the last triumphant march. The soundtrack and score of Police Academy march to their own beat, literally. From the moment that iconic theme kicks in, with its military-style drum rolls and heroic brass section, you know you're in for something that's both disciplined and delightfully ridiculous. Composer Robert Folk delivers a musical score that understands exactly what kind of film this is. It's not here to manipulate your emotions with sweeping violins or haunting piano. It's here to salute absurdity, march alongside madness, and punch up the punchlines with a full-on comedic fanfare. Let's talk about that theme music, because it's impossible to ignore. It sounds like it was written for an epic war drama or a grand adventure movie, and that's exactly why it works so well. The juxtaposition of that soaring, triumphant melody with the sight of the most incompetent police recruits ever assembled creates instant comedy. The music takes itself seriously, and that contrast is the joke. It's a smart trick. Instead of scoring the film like a typical comedy with goofy jingles and zany stings, Folk leans into the drama, giving the audience music that sounds like it belongs in a parade, not a prank war. Throughout the film, the score keeps pace with the story's rhythm. During the training montages, the music swells with almost patriotic enthusiasm, as if these recruits are truly becoming defenders of justice, instead of fumbling their way through obstacle courses and accidentally setting off alarms. The music adds this layer of playful irony, because the score believes in these characters even when no one else does. It makes their ridiculous efforts feel grand, and that elevates the comedy without ever making fun of the characters themselves. There are also standout musical cues that align perfectly with character moments. When Jones unleashes his sound effects, there's often a deliberate use of silence or minimal score to let his vocal talents take center stage. It's a clever use of space. The music steps back, giving him the floor to shine. Then, when the joke lands, the score returns to underscore the chaos he's just caused. Similarly, Tackleberry's scenes sometimes feature exaggerated action-style scoring, parodying the kind of over-the-top music you'd hear in a serious cop movie, which only makes his character feel more unhinged, in the best way. The score also knows when to go quiet. Silence or near silence is used effectively in scenes where the joke is visual or performance-driven. For example, when Mahoney is mid-prank or when a character is teetering on the edge of disaster, the absence of music builds tension just enough to let the punchline explode without being drowned out. It's like the score knows when to get out of the way and let the actors do their thing. Musical motifs come back at just the right moments. The main theme recurs throughout the film, usually when the recruits are grouped together or marching, often completely out of sync. That familiar tune plays like a reminder that, despite all the nonsense, these people are still somehow training to be police officers. The music gives their misadventures a strange kind of legitimacy, and that contrast becomes a running gag in itself. The big riot sequence near the end is where the score goes a bit more dynamic, mixing in slightly more tension-driven music with the comedic theme still present underneath. Even here, the soundtrack doesn't try to push the film into action territory. It holds onto the comedic edge while giving the scene a little more urgency. It's just enough to make the stakes feel real without ever betraying the film's tone. What makes the score so effective is how seamlessly it blends with the film's identity. It doesn't overpower the story. It doesn't try to steer your emotions in a different direction. It's a cheerleader for the nonsense, a musical wink that tells you the film knows exactly how silly it is and invites you to enjoy every second. The soundtrack isn't just background noise, it's part of the personality. It brings cohesion to the chaos, polish to the pratfalls, and a strange kind of dignity to characters who trip over their own feet every other scene. In a film where everything is designed to fall apart in the funniest way possible, the score holds it all together, with a trumpet fanfare and a confident drumroll, as if to say, yes, this is madness. But it's official, and it's glorious. At first glance, Police Academy might seem like nothing more than a whirlwind of slapstick, gags, and absurd characters bumbling through their way into law enforcement. But look a little closer. Beneath all the ridiculous pranks, pie fights, and loudspeaker antics, the film is quietly poking at some surprisingly thoughtful themes. It's just smart enough to keep those themes wrapped in jokes so you're never hit over the head with them. But they're there, marching alongside the chaos, giving the film its lasting charm and unexpected layers. One of the most prominent themes is the classic misfits journey. This is a story about a bunch of people who don't belong. They're outcasts, rule breakers, eccentrics, and underachievers. They don't fit the mold of what a police officer is supposed to be. But through sheer stubbornness, accidental success, and a little camaraderie, they start to prove that maybe the mold itself is the problem. This idea of challenging stereotypes and finding value in unconventional individuals plays out again and again. Mahoney, the troublemaker, becomes a leader. Hooks, who can barely speak above a whisper, finds her voice. Jones, who makes his living with goofy sound effects, becomes a hero in his own way. The film celebrates people who are overlooked and underestimated, turning them into unlikely successes. There's also a big underlying message about authority, not just the kind the characters are trying to earn by becoming police officers, but the kind that gets abused. Police Academy loves to mock figures of authority who take themselves too seriously. Whether it's the strict and snobbish Lieutenant Harris or the grumpy Commandant Lassard, the film constantly flips the power dynamic. The ones who try to impose order usually end up the butt of the joke, while the misfits find creative, and usually ridiculous, ways to outsmart them. This reversal reinforces the idea that rigid structures don't always lead to the best results, and sometimes flexibility, creativity, and unpredictability are more powerful than blind discipline. Another subtle but important theme is about teamwork and unity. Despite their many differences, personality, background, ability, the recruits have to learn how to function as a unit. And while they don't do that in a traditional or polished way, the result is surprisingly effective. The film is saying, in its own zany way, that true strength doesn't come from conformity but from cooperation. Everyone brings something to the table, even if what they're bringing is weird sound effects or an obsession with firearms. The unity that develops among the recruits is what ultimately saves the day when things go sideways, proving that trust and shared chaos can be just as powerful as order and precision. It also touches on the theme of transformation, not just on a surface level like going from civilian to officer, but personal transformation. Characters are constantly evolving in small but meaningful ways. Mahoney goes from selfish to selfless. Hooks becomes confident. Fackler realizes he might be capable of more than just passive chaos. Even Tackleberry, in all his gung-ho madness, reveals a more human side when romance unexpectedly enters his story. The film shows that growth doesn't always come through serious drama. It can happen through silliness too. There's a light satirical thread running through it all. Police Academy isn't just mocking authority for fun, it's also gently poking at the systems and institutions we take for granted. The idea that anyone can join the police force, no matter how unqualified, is exaggerated for comedy, but it also raises real questions about what kinds of people are put in positions of power and what it really means to serve and protect. It's not preaching. It never gets heavy-handed. But it does plant the seed of thought while you're laughing at someone getting stuck in a horse's rear end. And let's not forget one of the simplest but most heartfelt themes, acceptance. These characters are misfits, but by the end, they're a team. They don't change to fit the system. The system bends just enough to make space for them. That's an oddly empowering message. It says you don't have to be perfect or polished or typical to matter. You just have to show up, be yourself, and maybe pull a prank or two along the way. So, buried beneath all the banana peels and bullhorns, Police Academy delivers a story that's actually about belonging, challenging the status quo, and embracing the messiness of growth. It does it all with a wink, a grin, and a whoopee cushion, but the message sticks with you long after the laughter fades. Police Academy is a product of its time, which means the visual effects lean heavily on practical, hands-on methods rather than digital wizardry. This isn't a world of CGI explosions or high-tech illusions. It's a world of slapstick stunts, physical gags, and real-life chaos captured on film. And honestly, that's part of the film's charm. The effects don't just blend naturally with the story, they are the story's visual heartbeat, grounding the absurdity in something tangible that makes the comedy hit harder. Take the iconic car flip scene with Hightower. This isn't a green screen stunt, it's a full-on practical effect with a real car being tossed and flipped. The sheer physicality of that moment, the weight, the impact, the reactions, feels authentic and exhilarating. You can almost hear the crunch and smell the rubber burning. That tactile quality makes the gag unforgettable and far more impactful than any digital recreation could be. It's messy, loud, and real, and that's exactly what makes it funny. The film also uses lots of classic practical effects for slapstick moments. Think of the horse incident in The Office, a perfectly staged practical gag with clever editing and timing. The visuals are straightforward but effective, relying on physical comedy and well-timed cuts rather than trickery. When Lieutenant Harris gets stuck or takes a hit, it's all done with real props, physical stunts, and the actor's commitment. The lack of polish actually makes these moments more relatable and hilarious. Explosions and chaotic scenes, like the riot toward the end, are built with miniatures, squibs, and practical pyrotechnics typical of early 80s filmmaking. They're not shiny or overly polished, but they fit the tone perfectly. The chaos feels tangible, like a messy neighborhood going off the rails rather than a high-budget blockbuster set piece. This keeps the film grounded in its comic reality and maintains that sense of controlled anarchy. Since Police Academy predates the widespread use of CGI, it doesn't suffer from the often distracting or uncanny effects that sometimes plague early digital attempts. There's a simplicity and honesty to the visuals. What you see is what was actually filmed on set. That absence of digital effects means the audience can focus on the actors' performances and the physical comedy without second-guessing the visuals. Where digital effects might have tried to polish or sanitize the chaos, the practical effects embrace imperfection. Cars crash, props fall apart, and stunts look just dangerous enough to keep you on edge. That rough-around-the-edges quality fits perfectly with the film's loose, improvisational energy. You get the sense that anything could go wrong, and that makes the comedy even funnier. In scenes with multiple characters, practical effects allow for layered comedy. For example, during training exercises, the various mishaps, tripping, crashing, spraying water, are all real physical events captured in camera. That immediacy adds to the energy and gives the audience a front-row seat to the unfolding mayhem. Even the smaller effects, like gunfire sounds or the signature noise effects from Jones, feel like part of this practical world. They're created live, in the moment, not glued on in post-production. That keeps the film's soundscape and visuals tightly connected, enhancing immersion rather than pulling you out. So while Police Academy doesn't dazzle with high-tech CGI, its use of practical effects is perfectly in tune with its spirit. The visual effects don't distract. They invite you into a messy, hilarious world where chaos reigns and reality is the funniest kind of special effect. The film's physicality and real-world stunts are what make its comedy stick, and the practical approach gives every gag a satisfying punch you can almost feel. The set design and locations in Police Academy play a surprisingly big role in shaping the film's goofy yet strangely immersive world. At first glance, the Police Academy itself might look like just a plain old government building, but the production design turns it into a playground of chaos, with every hallway, classroom, and training ground doubling as a stage for slapstick mayhem. The sets are practical and straightforward, but that simplicity actually works in the film's favor, grounding all the zaniness in a believable environment that feels lived in and functional, even as the characters turn it upside down. The Academy's interiors are decorated with typical institutional fare: gray walls, bulletin boards, official signs, and rows of lockers, but this ordinary backdrop serves as the perfect contrast to the absurd events taking place. You get the sense this is a real place where rules are supposed to be followed, but instead it's become a battleground for pranks, mishaps, and hijinks. The design quietly reinforces the film's main joke. This place is supposed to train disciplined officers, but instead, it's a circus with badges. Training facilities like the obstacle courses, shooting ranges, and classrooms are dressed with just enough detail to feel authentic but remain flexible for physical comedy. For example, the obstacle course is a mix of the practical and the ridiculous: ramps, ropes, and walls that the recruits either conquer or hilariously fail at. These sets are designed to highlight action and pratfalls, and the way they're laid out encourages dynamic movement and inventive gags. Watching recruits crash through these courses feels like watching a comedy obstacle course race, and the production design leans into that with every ramp and barrier. Outside the academy, the locations offer a bit more variety but stay firmly in the realm of everyday city life. Streets, alleys, and offices create a believable urban backdrop, and the riot scenes toward the end use a gritty, lived-in setting that adds real stakes to the chaos. The contrast between the tidy academy and the rougher city streets highlights the gap between training and real-world policing, which feeds into the story's humor and tension. The locations feel accessible and relatable. You could almost imagine this happening in a town near you. Props throughout the film also deserve a shout-out. From the oversized badges to the riot gear and the exaggerated police equipment, the details add layers of fun. Some props are designed to be comedic themselves, like Tackleberry's arsenal of guns or the ridiculously large megaphone used for shouting orders. These items don't just look like police gear, they become characters in their own right, tools for physical comedy and visual jokes. The office spaces, especially those belonging to Lieutenant Harris and Commandant Lassard, reflect their personalities perfectly. Harris's office is cramped, cluttered, and hostile, just like his demeanor, while Lassard's is a bit more relaxed and chaotic, mirroring his clueless yet well-meaning character. These small touches in set dressing add depth without needing words, helping the audience understand the power dynamics and personalities at play. Even the costumes fit into the set design's role in world building. The classic police uniforms, with their crisp lines and badges, contrast sharply with the recruits' often disheveled appearances. This visual distinction reinforces the theme of order versus chaos, and the sets provide the perfect backdrop for that clash. The production design team clearly knew that Police Academy wasn't about flashy sets or elaborate visuals. Instead, they built a believable, functional world that serves as a perfect playground for the film's comedy. Every corridor, training room, and prop feels like it belongs to the story's universe, making the madness feel like it's actually happening in a real place. That sense of authenticity, combined with the chaos the characters unleash, makes the world of Police Academy both convincing and endlessly entertaining. The dialogue and script of Police Academy march in like a wild parade, full of goofy one-liners, quick-fire banter, and enough catchphrases to fill a comedy hall of fame. This is not a film that aims for Shakespearean eloquence or subtle nuance. Instead, it thrives on punchy, memorable lines delivered with perfect comedic timing that stick with you long after the credits roll. The script's true genius lies in its ability to mix sharp wit with broad slapstick, creating a dialogue landscape that's as varied and unpredictable as the characters themselves. Right from the start, the script sets the tone with lines that are equal parts cheeky and self-aware. Mahoney's sarcastic quips bounce off the more straight-laced characters like a rubber ball, keeping the energy high and the mood light. The banter between recruits feels natural in its chaos. They interrupt, talk over each other, and toss insults with playful camaraderie. It's not polished, but it's real, which makes the humor land better. You get the sense that these lines could have come from a group of friends riffing in a break room, which adds to the film's charm. Then there's the sheer inventiveness of the character-specific dialogue. Tackleberry's gun-obsessed rants and overly serious tactical jargon turn every conversation into a mini parody of action heroes. His lines about lock and load and maximum firepower feel intentionally over the top, but David Graff delivers them with such conviction that they become iconic. This kind of writing turns what could be a one-note character into a source of endless comedy gold. Larval Jones's dialogue is a special case because much of his lines are actually sound effects. But even when he speaks, it's with a quirky, understated charm that fits perfectly with his character's vibe. The script gives him space to shine without drowning him in traditional dialogue, which makes his sound-based humor stand out even more. It's a clever writing choice that lets Michael Winslow's unique talent take center stage without overshadowing the rest. Hook's shy and high-pitched voice is another memorable element of the dialogue. Her timid lines, whispered almost like secrets, contrast hilariously with the louder personalities around her. The build-up to her famous outburst later in the film is written with such care that it feels like a slow-burning joke that finally pays off in a huge way. It's a brilliant use of pacing and character voice in the script, showing that sometimes less is more. Lieutenant Harris's dialogue is packed with bitterness and frustration, making him the perfect foil for the recruits. His snide remarks and sharp retorts crackle with hostility, but the writing gives him just enough exaggeration to keep it funny rather than mean-spirited. His lines like, "Get your hands off my car," or "I'm gonna wring your neck," have become comedy classics because they toe the line between genuine anger and ridiculous overreaction. Commandant Lassard's lines are gold in their own right. His clueless but well-meaning ramblings, mixed with moments of accidental wisdom, add a layer of warmth and innocence to the script. The way he delivers lines about the fine art of policing, or forgets what he was about to say, creates a lovable eccentric who softens the film's rough edges. The script is also loaded with clever callbacks and running jokes that reward attentive viewers. Whether it's the repeated failures in training, the constant chaos around the academy, or the growing tension between Harris and Mahoney, the dialogue builds a rhythm that keeps the audience hooked. The writers knew how to balance standalone jokes with long-term payoffs, which is key to the film's lasting appeal. What's truly impressive is how the script balances verbal humor with physical comedy. The dialogue never tries to do too much on its own. Instead, it complements the visual gags perfectly. When a character delivers a witty line, it's often followed by a physical mishap that underlines or subverts the joke. This harmony between script and performance makes the humor multi-dimensional and endlessly entertaining. In short, the dialogue and script of Police Academy are a carefully crafted chaos of wit, catchphrases, and memorable moments. It's the kind of writing that knows when to be sharp, when to be silly, and when to let the characters' personalities do the talking. The lines are delivered with a wink and a nod, inviting the audience into a world where the ridiculous is king and the laughs never stop coming. Police Academy arrives like a comedic tornado right in the middle of the classic cop movie genre, but instead of playing by the usual rules, it gleefully tosses the rulebook out the window. This film knows exactly what a police procedural or action movie is supposed to be: gritty, serious, and filled with tough heroes, but it chooses to flip those expectations upside down, inside out, and then laugh hysterically while doing it. It's a masterclass in genre subversion wrapped in a giant whoopee cushion. The traditional police movie usually revolves around high-stakes crime-solving, intense action sequences, and the heroic rise of a determined protagonist. Police Academy acknowledges these conventions but immediately sidesteps them. Instead of a singular hero, we get an entire battalion of misfits, each more absurd than the last. Rather than tense shootouts or brooding interrogations, the film delivers pratfalls, slapstick gags, and endless training blunders. The stakes are kept deliberately low. Sure, there's a riot at the end, but it's played for laughs, not thrills. One of the freshest ideas the film brings to the genre is its democratization of the police force. The plot centers on the city's desperate decision to let anyone join the academy, no matter how unqualified. This premise is a clever twist on the usual elite cop squad trope, turning the police force into a ragtag collection of personalities who barely belong. The film uses this to mine comedy gold, showing how breaking down rigid systems can lead to both chaos and unexpected success. It's a satire wrapped in a buddy comedy, poking fun at authority without being cynical. Humor is the heartbeat of Police Academy, and it balances it expertly with just enough action to keep things exciting. The action scenes are not your typical chase sequences or shootouts, they're comedic set pieces. The riot near the end, for example, is chaotic but funny, more about physical comedy and character antics than suspense or danger. The film understands that in this genre mashup, humor takes priority over adrenaline, and it embraces that fully. Drama is minimal, and where it exists, it's often played for laughs or as a way to give characters a moment of growth amid the chaos. The film doesn't try to dive deep into emotional territory or heavy themes. Instead, it uses brief moments of sincerity, like Hook's finding her voice or Mahoney stepping up, to add heart without slowing down the pace. This light touch keeps the tone consistently upbeat and prevents the film from becoming weighed down. The movie leans heavily into clichés, but intentionally. The hard-nosed lieutenant, the rookie with a chip on his shoulder, the over-the-top weapons enthusiast, these archetypes are all there, but they're exaggerated to cartoonish extremes. The film wears its clichés like badges of honor, using them as springboards for jokes rather than serious character development. This self-awareness allows it to entertain audiences familiar with the genre by flipping familiar expectations on their heads. The buddy cop dynamic is stretched beyond the usual duo into a full ensemble cast, which feels fresh. Instead of focusing on one or two leads, Police Academy spreads the spotlight among a large group, creating a patchwork of personalities that interact in unpredictable and hilarious ways. This ensemble approach broadens the scope of the comedy and breaks from the typical lone wolf cop hero narrative. Visually and tonally, the film embraces the exaggerated world of slapstick comedy rather than the gritty realism often found in police movies. This shift in style supports its subversion of genre conventions, signaling to the audience that they're in for something wildly different from a typical cop drama. Overall, Police Academy doesn't just follow or ignore genre conventions, it gleefully mocks them, turning police movie tropes into comedic playground equipment. It introduces fresh ideas through its premise and character ensemble, balances humor with just enough action and drama, and invites viewers to laugh at the absurdity of it all. It's a film that knows what it is and isn't afraid to have a blast with it. Police Academy might not come across as a heavyweight social critique at first glance, but beneath all the slapstick and silly antics, it quietly taps into some interesting social and cultural currents of its time. The film isn't preaching or delivering heavy-handed messages. Instead, it weaves commentary into the fabric of its humor, letting the laughs carry some surprisingly pointed observations about authority, diversity, and societal change. One of the clearest threads is the film's take on inclusivity and diversity, framed through its central premise: a police academy forced to accept recruits from all walks of life, no matter how unorthodox. This reflects a real-world tension from the early 1980s, when institutions were starting to grapple with expanding access and breaking down traditional barriers. Instead of presenting a slick, polished force, the movie shows a motley crew of misfits, which becomes a celebration of unconventional backgrounds and personalities. It's a comedic nudge at the idea that institutions might be too rigid and exclusive, and maybe that's a problem. The film's portrayal of characters like Hooks, the shy woman who finds her voice, and Hightower, the gentle giant, lightly addresses gender and racial diversity in a way that feels casual but important. Hook's arc, especially, pokes at the stereotypes of women being timid or less capable in tough environments, showing growth without making a big fuss about it. Hightower's character breaks the mold of traditional macho masculinity, blending physical strength with kindness. These inclusions aren't shouted from the rooftops, they're part of the ensemble's natural makeup, which was pretty forward-thinking for a broad comedy of that era. Police Academy also plays with authority and bureaucracy, offering a satirical look at how power is wielded and often mishandled. The characters in charge, Lieutenant Harris, Commandant Lassard, are caricatures of the inept or rigid authority figures who get in the way more than they help. Harris's obsessive need to control everything, combined with his frequent failures, is a humorous but telling critique of authoritarian attitudes. The film suggests that strict control isn't always the answer, and that sometimes, a little chaos and flexibility can lead to better results. This ties into a broader cultural skepticism toward institutions that was bubbling up in the 80s, when public trust in government and law enforcement was being questioned. On a lighter note, the film pokes fun at the hypermasculine image of the police force through characters like Tackleberry, whose over-the-top love of guns and military bravado borders on parody. This exaggeration not only serves the comedy, but also invites audiences to question the seriousness with which such traits are often celebrated. It's a playful jab at cultural norms around masculinity, violence, and authority. The riot sequence toward the end can also be seen through a cultural lens. While played for laughs, it hints at urban unrest and social tensions that were very real in the late 20th century. Instead of a grim portrayal, the film reframes chaos as comedic, perhaps as a way to diffuse anxieties around such issues or to remind audiences that even serious situations have absurd moments. It doesn't dive deep, but it touches on the idea that disorder is part of the social fabric. Importantly, the film handles these sensitive topics without ever feeling preachy or forced. The social commentary sneaks in beneath the laughter, giving viewers space to enjoy the comedy while also engaging with the ideas. It's like the film is whispering, "Here's something to think about," while shouting, "Now watch this guy trip over a mop bucket." In sum, Police Academy uses its humor and characters to reflect on themes of inclusion, authority, and social change in a way that's light but thoughtful. It balances these elements naturally within its comedic chaos, making social commentary feel like part of the fun rather than an awkward add-on. It's a comedy that laughs with the culture it inhabits, sometimes at it, but always with a knowing wink. Police Academy is like that old friend who shows up unannounced at a party and instantly gets everyone laughing until their sides hurt. It connects with audiences on a purely emotional level by delivering non-stop humor, relatable characters, and a story that doesn't ask for much more than your willingness to join in on the fun. The film isn't trying to stir your soul with heavy drama or make you ponder life's deepest questions. It's all about hitting those moments that make you laugh out loud, cheer for the underdogs, and maybe even snort a little when someone slips on a banana peel. From the very beginning, the film grabs you by the funny bone. The opening scenes, with the mismatched recruits showing up at the academy, create an instant connection because who hasn't felt like the odd one out at some point? This emotional resonance comes not from tragedy or conflict but from a shared experience of awkwardness and the desire to prove oneself. That's a universal feeling, and the film taps into it through humor and heart. Laughter is the biggest emotional currency here, and Police Academy pays out in spades. The comedy is relentless and varied. Slapstick pratfalls, sharp one-liners, physical gags, and goofy sound effects all mix to keep the audience engaged. Moments like Mahoney's pranks, Jones's vocal sound effects, or the climactic riot sequence aren't just funny, they're crowd pleasers that invite active reactions. The film's timing is impeccable, delivering punchlines and setups that keep viewers hooked and often prompting spontaneous bursts of laughter. But it's not just about laughs. The film sprinkles in moments that invite cheering and excitement, especially as the underdog recruits start to gel as a team. Watching characters like Hooks finally stand up for herself or Mahoney step into a leadership role gives the audience little emotional payoffs that feel earned amid the comedy chaos. These moments may be brief and light, but they add an emotional layer that keeps the film from feeling like a one-note gag reel. Audience engagement also comes from the ensemble nature of the cast. With so many distinct personalities, viewers find themselves rooting for different characters at different times. This diversity in characters makes the film more inclusive emotionally. There's someone for everyone to relate to or laugh with. Whether it's the shy Hooks, the loud-mouthed Mahoney, or the gun-obsessed Tackleberry, each character offers a unique emotional hook that keeps the audience invested. The film's pace and rhythm play a big role in maintaining engagement. There's never a dull moment, and the editing ensures that scenes flow smoothly, keeping viewers on their toes. The quick transitions from training mishaps to personal antics to riot chaos create a roller coaster effect that holds attention and encourages repeat viewings. Every time you watch, you might catch a joke or gag you missed before. What's more, Police Academy invites conversation long after the screen goes dark. Whether it's quoting favorite lines, debating the funniest character, or reminiscing about that legendary car crash, the film sparks shared memories and cultural references that fans love to revisit. It's a communal experience that thrives on audience participation and nostalgia. While it's not a film designed for deep philosophical reflection, Police Academy excels at emotional resonance through humor and heart. It connects with audiences by making them feel part of the misfit gang, cheering for the underdogs, and laughing at the beautifully orchestrated chaos. That combination creates a lasting bond that keeps viewers coming back, eager for another round of hilarious hijinks and unexpected camaraderie. When it comes to Police Academy, comparing it to other films in the comedy and cop movie genres is like sizing up a wild party against a more buttoned-up gathering. Both might be fun, but Police Academy is the one that's throwing water balloons and letting loose in the fountain. It stands out as a raucous, no-holds-barred take on the police comedy, carving its own niche with a blend of slapstick, ensemble chaos, and a premise that invites pure silliness rather than serious crime-solving drama. Compared to traditional cop movies of the time, which often leaned into gritty realism, tense investigations, or buddy cop dynamics with sharp dialogue, Police Academy throws those expectations out the window. It trades the serious tone for absurdity, focusing less on crime and more on the comedic misadventures of a motley crew who barely know which end of a gun to hold. Unlike films that highlight the professionalism or heroism of law enforcement, this one gleefully celebrates incompetence and the unexpected ways it can still triumph. That gives it a fresh and anarchic spirit rarely seen in police comedies before or since. Within the comedy genre more broadly, Police Academy shares DNA with classic slapstick and ensemble comedies, but it cranks the energy up to 11. Think of it as a cousin to films like Animal House or Revenge of the Nerds, movies that revel in underdogs running riot, but with the added twist of the Police Academy setting. This backdrop provides endless opportunities for physical gags, costume humor, and authority figure mockery, giving it a unique flavor that sets it apart from college or workplace comedies of the era. The ensemble cast is another factor that distinguishes it. While many comedies rely on one or two standout leads, Police Academy spreads the spotlight widely, creating a chaotic but lovable tapestry of characters. This approach can be compared to other ensemble comedies like The Blues Brothers or Stripes, but Police Academy leans more heavily into the gag-a-minute, rapid-fire joke style, making it feel like a comedy carnival rather than a tightly scripted narrative. That unpredictability keeps audiences on their toes and encourages multiple viewings to catch all the nuances and throwaway lines. Looking at it through the lens of the director's filmography, Hugh Wilson was known for his sharp comedic sensibilities, particularly from WKRP in Cincinnati. Police Academy takes that TV-style humor and pushes it into bigger, zanier territory. The film's pacing, character archetypes, and comedic timing carry that signature Wilson touch, but with a much broader canvas for physical comedy and outrageous set pieces. It feels like Wilson grabbed the reins and decided to go full throttle on slapstick and ensemble madness, which paid off by creating a memorable cult classic that still influences comedies today. The film also spawned a franchise, which offers a mixed bag when it comes to comparison. The original Police Academy set a high bar for zany humor and character introductions, while many of the sequels struggled to capture the same spark, often recycling jokes or dialing up the silliness without adding much substance. In that sense, the first film remains the gold standard, fresh, energetic, and balanced between chaos and charm, whereas the follow-ups sometimes felt like shadow plays trying to relive past glory. When stacked up against other police comedies like the Naked Gun series or Beverly Hills Cop, Police Academy is less about witty satire or action comedy hybrids and more about unabashed slapstick and crowd-pleasing antics. It's rougher around the edges, more physical, and less polished, which is part of its enduring appeal. It doesn't strive for cleverness or sophistication. Instead, it aims straight for belly laughs and goofy antics, and it hits that mark with gusto. In short, Police Academy carves out its own quirky space in the comedy landscape, a high-energy, slapstick-filled, ensemble-driven riot that stands apart from more conventional cop movies and even many comedies. It offers a fresh, wild spin on genre expectations, inviting audiences to abandon seriousness and dive headfirst into a world where rules are made to be broken and laughter is the top priority. At first glance, Police Academy might seem all about the laughs and the slapstick chaos, but if you look a bit closer, there's a surprisingly playful layer of symbolism and metaphor bubbling under the surface that adds some unexpected depth to the comedy. The film uses recurring motifs and visual cues not just to generate laughs, but to subtly underscore its bigger themes about authority, identity, and transformation. One of the clearest symbolic elements is the academy itself. It's more than just a training ground for police officers, it functions like a metaphorical school of life, or even a social experiment. The academy represents a rigid institutional system designed to mold people into a specific type of citizen or professional. But instead of producing cookie-cutter officers, it becomes a stage where individuality and chaos reign supreme. The misfit recruits don't just learn how to be cops, they challenge the very idea of conformity that the academy stands for. The building's sterile halls and regimented routines become a visual symbol of order and control, constantly disrupted by the recruits' antics, highlighting the tension between structure and freedom. The repeated motif of uniform and costume plays into this symbolism, too. Uniforms in the film symbolize the expectation of conformity, discipline, and authority. Yet, throughout the film, these uniforms often get disheveled, swapped, or used in ridiculous ways. This visual playfulness with the police uniform suggests that identity is flexible and that external appearances don't always tell the full story. It's a cheeky nod to the idea that what makes a person or a professional isn't just the clothes they wear, but how they carry themselves and what they believe in, even if that belief is, let's prank the lieutenant. Another recurring visual cue is the constant stumbling, falling, and crashing of characters through the environment. These physical mishaps aren't just comedy staples. They symbolize the recruits' struggle to navigate the expectations placed on them. Every trip, slip, and collision mirrors their bumpy journey through the academy's rules and societal norms. It's like the film is saying that growth and success often come through failure and chaos, turning physical comedy into a metaphor for personal transformation. The character of Mahoney can also be seen as a symbolic figure, a trickster archetype who disrupts authority but ultimately drives positive change. His rebelliousness isn't just about causing trouble, it's a metaphor for challenging outdated systems and shaking up the status quo. Mahoney embodies the idea that breaking the rules can sometimes be necessary to bring about growth, a theme visually reinforced whenever he outsmarts or embarrasses the straight-laced figures of authority. The riot near the film's climax serves as a larger metaphor for societal unrest and the unpredictable consequences of suppressing individuality. While played for laughs, the chaos of the riot visually represents what happens when rigid institutions lose control and underestimated voices push back. It's a metaphorical eruption of suppressed frustrations that the film cleverly disguises as a comedic set piece. Sound motifs, like Larval Jones's vocal sound effects, also serve a symbolic purpose. His unique ability to produce noises represents the power of creativity and unconventional talents in a world that prizes conformity. His character's success shows that there's value in breaking norms and that different skills can shine, even in rigid environments. Even the repeated conflicts between Lieutenant Harris and the recruits symbolize the age-old struggle between oppressive authority and individual freedom. Harris's exaggerated attempts to maintain control and the recruits' playful resistance create a visual and narrative metaphor for societal push and pull, order versus chaos, tradition versus change. So while Police Academy may appear on the surface as a simple, silly comedy, its use of symbolism and metaphor gives it an underlying richness. These elements enhance the storytelling by reinforcing the film's playful but meaningful themes, making the chaos not just funny but also a clever commentary on authority, identity, and the messiness of growing up. It's like the movie is telling you, have fun with the madness, but don't forget, there's a method to it all. Police Academy didn't just arrive on the scene as a one-off comedy. It kicked off a full-blown franchise that took its chaotic energy and ran wild for several sequels, animated shows, and even stage adaptations. It's like the opening act of a comedy circus that kept expanding its tent to fit more slapstick, more characters, and more outrageous scenarios. This first film laid down the blueprint, a motley crew of misfit recruits, a series of escalating pranks, and the eternal battle between rebellious rookies and uptight authority figures. The simplicity and flexibility of that formula allowed the franchise to stretch and bend in all sorts of directions. Within the series, the original Police Academy serves as the foundation story, introducing us to the key players, the setting, and the tone. It's where the recruits first come together, where Mahoney's leadership style is born, and where Lieutenant Harris's hatred of chaos takes root. This setup is crucial because it gives the sequel something to riff on. Characters develop running gags, rivalries intensify, and the stakes get pushed higher, often with bigger and zanier situations. Without this first film's careful balance of character introduction and comedy chaos, the sequels wouldn't have the same emotional or comedic impact. Unlike many franchises that try to deepen their narratives with every sequel, Police Academy embraces a loose continuity that's more about revisiting familiar jokes and characters than telling a tightly connected story. This gives the series a sitcom-like feel, where each film is a playground for familiar faces to get into new scrapes rather than chapters in an overarching drama. The freedom to hit the reset button keeps the energy fresh but sometimes results in uneven storytelling or recycled humor. Still, fans often come back because they know exactly what to expect: more slapstick, more pranks, and more lovable incompetence. The franchise also reflects the changing comedic tastes and cultural landscape of the 1980s and early 1990s. The original film's relatively subtle social commentary and character-driven humor gradually gave way to broader, more exaggerated slapstick and wilder scenarios as the series progressed. This evolution mirrors how comedy franchises often respond to audience demand for bigger laughs and spectacle, sometimes at the expense of nuance. In this way, Police Academy acts as a time capsule for evolving comedy styles across its run. Historically, the original film fits into a moment when Hollywood was experimenting with irreverent, youth-oriented comedies that mixed physical humor with ensemble casts. It tapped into the post-**Animal House* wave of R-rated comedies that celebrated rebellion and nonconformity, but set against a new backdrop: the Police Academy. This context makes the film feel like part of a broader cultural conversation about authority and individualism in the early 1980s, even as it wraps that conversation in goofy antics. The film's success also influenced how comedies could spawn sprawling franchises, proving that a simple, effective formula with strong characters could generate multiple follow-ups without losing its audience. It's a classic example of a comedy that became bigger than itself, creating a brand identity around its unique style of humor and character archetypes. In sum, Police Academy is more than just the start of a series. It's the cornerstone of a comedic empire that captured a specific cultural moment and kept expanding its world of misfit heroes and ridiculous scenarios. It set the tone for what audiences could expect from the franchise: a wild, unpredictable, and thoroughly entertaining ride through the less glamorous side of law enforcement, where laughter always comes first. Police Academy is a classic example of a movie that made the most out of a modest budget and turned it into a huge financial win. The film was made on a surprisingly tight budget, especially compared to the big blockbusters of its time, but it never feels cheap or sloppy. Instead, the production team used creativity and resourcefulness to stretch every dollar, delivering solid production quality that perfectly suited the film's comedic and chaotic tone. The sets, costumes, and locations don't scream million-dollar extravaganza, but that actually works in the film's favor. The Police Academy building, the training grounds, and the city streets all feel authentic enough to ground the comedy, without overshadowing the characters and gags. The practical effects and physical comedy get center stage, making the most of simple but effective props and setups. This no-frills approach adds to the charm. It's like watching a well-oiled comedy machine that doesn't need flashy visuals to keep you entertained. On the financial side, Police Academy was a massive success. The movie outperformed expectations at the box office, becoming a sleeper hit that drew audiences eager for lighthearted, irreverent fun. Word of mouth played a huge role. People loved talking about the ridiculous characters and hilarious scenes, which helped keep ticket sales strong long after its initial release. It's the kind of film that thrived on repeat viewings and group audiences, with friends flocking to theaters to catch the laughs together. Marketing for Police Academy leaned into its quirky humor and ensemble cast, highlighting the wild antics and colorful characters rather than selling it as a traditional cop movie. This approach helped it stand out in a crowded market. The trailers and posters teased the chaos without giving too much away, inviting curious viewers to see what all the fuss was about. The film's tagline and promotional materials promised a riotous time, and it delivered exactly that, which built trust with audiences who then recommended it to others. Another interesting aspect is how the film's financial success helped prove that comedies with ensemble casts and modest budgets could become major box office draws. This paved the way for similar films in the years that followed, influencing how studios approached comedy projects. The fact that Police Academy launched a franchise is a testament to its profitability and popularity. While it didn't have the glossy sheen of big-budget action films or prestige dramas, Police Academy turned its limited budget into a strength, focusing on character-driven humor and slapstick that didn't require expensive effects or locations. This savvy use of resources, combined with effective marketing and a receptive audience hungry for laughs, made it not just a financial success but a cultural phenomenon that kept audiences coming back for more. In short, the budget might have been modest, but the returns were anything but. Police Academy proves that you don't need a blockbuster budget to make a movie that's both funny and wildly successful. Sometimes, all it takes is a great cast, clever writing, and a willingness to embrace chaos. If you're looking to dive into the world of Police Academy and experience the wild ride of misfit cops in training, there are a few ways to catch this classic comedy, each offering a different flavor of viewing that can enhance your experience depending on your mood and setup. The film has traveled through various platforms since its theatrical debut, making it accessible for new fans and longtime followers alike. First off, if you're the type who loves the thrill of a big screen, Police Academy occasionally pops up in special theatrical screenings, especially at retro movie nights or comedy film festivals. Watching it in a theater can crank up the energy. There's something about laughing alongside a crowd that makes Mahoney's pranks and the riot scenes even more hilarious. The collective chuckles, gasps, and cheers turn the experience into a shared celebration of slapstick and silliness, which is exactly the vibe the film thrives on. For the home viewer, Police Academy is widely available on various streaming platforms, usually included as part of their comedy or classic movie collections. Streaming offers the convenience of watching anytime you want, which is perfect for binge-watching the whole franchise or revisiting favorite scenes at your own pace. The instant access means you can enjoy Larval Jones's sound effects or Tackleberry's antics whenever the mood strikes, making it an easy go-to when you need a guaranteed laugh. If streaming isn't your style or you want the highest quality viewing, digital rentals or purchases on platforms like Amazon Prime Video, iTunes, or Google Play provide options to watch in HD or even 4K where available. This gives you sharp picture quality and clear sound, letting you catch every visual gag and punchline with crisp detail. Watching on a big TV with good speakers or headphones can bring new life to the film's sound design and physical comedy, making it feel like you're right there in the Academy. There's also the classic DVD or Blu-ray route, which appeals to collectors and fans who love having physical copies complete with bonus features. Some editions include behind-the-scenes footage, cast interviews, and commentary tracks that add context and fun insights into the making of the film. This can deepen your appreciation and make a Police Academy movie night feel like a special event rather than just another streaming session. For the fullest impact, the best way to watch Police Academy depends on what you're after. If you want the communal, laughter-packed atmosphere, track down a theater screening or gather friends for a viewing party. If you're into convenience and instant access, streaming or digital purchase offers flexibility and quality. And if you're a fan of extras and nostalgia, a physical copy with bonus content is a treasure trove. No matter how you watch it, Police Academy rewards viewers with timeless comedy and a cast of characters who keep the fun rolling. Whether it's a casual laugh or a full-on nostalgia trip, this film's availability across multiple formats means there's no excuse not to jump in and enjoy the chaotic training days of one of the most beloved comedy franchises around.